Your food business could pass every health inspection and still lose everything in a single recall. That's not a scare tactic. That's what the numbers say right now. In 2025, the FDA issued 571 food recalls. That's up 15.4% in 1 year. And the units pulled from shelves? 138.5 million, a 209% jump in volume. A single serious recall costs $10 million in direct costs and wipes out $109 million in shareholder value within 5 trading days. In the next 12 minutes, here's exactly what we're covering. Why documented systems are the only real protection you have right now, 5 specific standard operating procedure examples every food business needs, and the right way to build and run those systems without it all depending on you. Let's go. I'm Kevin. I work with Sulum. If you're curious whether a VSA fits your business, the link's in the description. It's just a conversation. Here's what most food businesses get wrong. They run on knowledge, not systems. The head chef knows the cleaning sequence. The receiving manager knows which suppliers run cold. The shift lead knows the allergen routine. And that works until it doesn't, until the head chef calls out sick, until the receiving manager quits, until a new hire gets the allergen sequence slightly wrong on a Tuesday afternoon and nobody catches it because it was never written down. 39% of food recalls are allergen-related. 63% are pathogen-driven. Both failure modes have one thing in common. They happen when the right steps aren't followed consistently, and consistency requires documentation, not someone's memory. A written, tested, running system. The FDA has missed its mandated facility inspection targets every year since 2018. That's not speculation. That's a government accountability report from January of this year. What that means for you is this. The auditor who shows up isn't your safety net. Your records are. Your logs are. Your documented procedures are. The burden of proof sits entirely with you. Now, here's the part most people skip over entirely. Who builds and runs those systems? The person who runs these systems has a specific name, a VSA, a virtual systems architect, not a virtual assistant, not a task taker. A VSA documents the process, builds the system, and runs it. You talk through a process for 5 minutes on video. The VSA writes the standard operating procedure with screenshots. Then the VSA runs it every week, consistently, without you managing it. That's the model. Keep that picture in your head as we go through each of these 5 systems, because every time we build a new standard operating procedure, someone has to own it. Someone has to run the log, check the documentation, flag the deviation, and keep the record clean. That's the VSA's job, not yours. Standard operating procedure number 1, receiving and cold chain. This is where most food safety problems start, at the dock. An ingredient comes in too warm, nobody checks, nobody logs it, it goes into production, and by the time there's a problem, you've already shipped the product. Your receiving standard operating procedure has a few non-negotiable elements. First, temperature thresholds with reject rules. Every temperature-sensitive delivery gets checked on arrival. Refrigerated product must come in at 41 degrees or below. If it's above that, you reject it, not question it, reject it. That rule has to be written down, because when there's pressure to accept a late shipment and the driver's waiting, people make different decisions without a written rule to point to. Second, temperature logs kept for 6 months, not in someone's head, in a log, with a date, a time, a temperature, and a signature. Auditors hunt missing records. A clean log is your defense. Third, first in, first out rotation, every time. The product that arrived Monday ships before the product that arrived Tuesday. This gets violated more often than people admit. A documented first in, first out rule with a label system makes it automatic. Fourth, allergen segregation at the dock. The peanut delivery doesn't go next to the oat-based product on the intake shelf. That separation starts the moment a delivery arrives. DIY path. Build this as a one-page checklist. Temperature field, reject threshold, supplier name, lot number, allergen flag, staff signature. The whole form takes about 3 hours to design the first time. You can build it in a spreadsheet or any form tool. After that, plan on 15 to 20 minutes a week for your receiving lead to review logs and flag any deviations. The honest friction point is consistency. A form on a clipboard gets ignored fast. You need someone to check that it's being used. That is doable. The question is whether you want to be the one running it every week. Standard operating procedure number 2, sanitation. Sanitation failures cause 63% of pathogen-driven recalls, and the most common reason sanitation fails isn't that people skip cleaning, it's that nobody agrees on what clean means. One person uses the right chemical, one person uses twice the concentration and half the dwell down. One person skips the allergen-specific step because they didn't know it was separate. Your sanitation standard operating procedure fixes that. It specifies the cleaning schedule, which surfaces get cleaned, when, and by whom. It specifies chemical concentration, the right dilution for each product, not a splosh of cleaner, an exact measurement. Dwell time matters too. A sanitizer needs contact time to kill pathogens. That time gets listed for every surface, for every chemical. Allergen-specific cleaning gets its own section. Separate tools for allergen zones, a dedicated mop, dedicated cloths, dedicated buckets. Dot separation is not optional. Cross-contact from shared cleaning equipment is a recall waiting to happen. Pre-shift and post-shift sign-off. Someone's name goes on the log, every shift. Not a checkbox, a signature. Because when something goes wrong, you need to know what happened and when, and so does the auditor. DIY path. Start by listing every surface in your facility that needs cleaning, the frequency, the approved chemical, the dilution ratio, and the dwell time. That inventory takes 1 to 2 days to build correctly. Then build a sign-off log. Figure on 2 to 3 hours a week to review logs and verify execution. The friction point here is chemical compliance. People default to habit. They use what's convenient. Someone has to actually verify the right product is being used at the right concentration. That is doable. The question is whether you want to be the one running it every week. Standard operating procedure number 3, allergen control and labeling. 39% of recalls, allergens. This one keeps food lawyers busy year-round. The allergen standard operating procedure starts with segregated storage, nuts, soy, dairy, shellfish, each category in a designated area, clearly labeled. Not adjacent to allergen-free products, not sharing a shelf because someone ran out of room. Segregated, always. Production sequencing is next. Allergen-free runs first, high allergen runs last. Every production shift. The reason is simple. You can clean after an allergen run. You can't uncontaminate the batch that ran before you cleaned. Getting the sequence right prevents the problem before it starts. Recipe and label verification before every run. The label on the product has to match what's actually in the batch. That's checked before production starts, not after. If the formula changed, the label gets updated first. This sounds obvious, it gets skipped constantly. Traceable rework rules. When product goes back into production, its allergen status travels with it. No rework goes into a batch with a different allergen profile. That rule gets documented. Staff allergen training. Every person who touches production knows what the allergens are, where they're stored, and what cross-contact looks like. That training gets documented too. Date, employee name, what was covered. DIY path. Build your allergen map. Every ingredient, every allergen it carries, every place in the facility it touches. That map takes a full day to build right. Add a pre-run checklist. Sequence confirmed, storage confirmed, label verified. Plan on 30 to 45 minutes per production run to work through the checklist properly. The friction point is label verification. It requires someone who knows the formulas checking every label every time. That stuff gets rushed. That is doable. The question is whether you want to be the one running it every week. If what we've been talking about sounds like your situation, there's a link in the description to book a free call with my team. No pitch. We just talk about your business, what's not working, and whether our VSA is actually the right fit. If it's not, we'll tell you that too. Standard operating procedure number 4, your food safety plan. HACCP monitoring. HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. It's your food safety plan. The federal food safety rules require it for most food operations now, but even where it's not mandated, it's the right system. Here's what this standard operating procedure actually contains. Start with the hazard analysis. What could go wrong with this food at every step? Biological hazards, chemical hazards, physical hazards. You list them. You document why they're a concern or why they're not. Then you identify the critical control points. These are the specific steps where you can actually prevent or eliminate a hazard. Temperature is the most common one. If your product needs to reach a specific internal temperature to kill pathogens, that temperature step is a critical control point. Time is another. Acidity is another. Water activity is another for shelf-stable products. For each critical control point, you set the limit. The temperature has to reach this level. The acidity has to be out or below this measurement. No guessing. Documented numbers. Then monitoring. How often do you check? Who checks? With what equipment? The monitoring frequency gets written into the procedure. Daily, every batch, every 2 hours, whatever the hazard requires. And corrective actions. What happens when something drifts? If the temperature reading comes in wrong, here's exactly what you do. Hold the product, investigate, document the deviation, decide on disposition. Every step is written in advance, not improvised in the moment. Verification testing closes the loop. You test to confirm the monitoring is working. You validate that the process actually controls the hazard. DIY path, your food safety plan, takes a qualified person to build correctly. Most small operations hire a consultant for the initial hazard analysis. Figure 2 to 4 days of work and somewhere between $1,500 and $4,000 to get a solid baseline plan. After that, monitoring logs run daily. Plan on 30 to 60 minutes a day across multiple checkpoints. The friction point is documentation fatigue. Monitoring logs get skipped on busy days. That's exactly when the auditor shows up. That is doable. The question is whether you want to be the one running it every week. Standard operating procedure number 5, traceability and recall readiness. This one doesn't prevent a problem, it controls the damage when a problem happens. And given 571 recalls in 2025, planning for a recall is not paranoid, it's just math. Lot and batch tracking from receipt to shipment. Every ingredient that comes into your facility carries a lot number from the supplier. That lot number connects to every batch that used that ingredient. Every batch that ships carries a lot number that connects back to the recipient. The chain is complete, from supplier to customer, unbroken. Supplier records. Every supplier has a file, contact information, lot numbers for every delivery, the dates, the volumes. If the FDA calls, you can pull that information in minutes. Customer records. Same thing on the outbound side. Who got what lot? When? How much? Quarterly mock recall drills. This is the part most businesses skip. They build the traceability system and never test it. A mock recall drill gives you a lot number and asks you to trace it, forward to every customer who received product from that lot, backward to every supplier ingredient in that lot. You time it. You document the gaps, you fix them before the real event. Hold and quarantine criteria. When product is suspect, what triggers a hold? Who has the authority to pull product? Where does it go while it's under investigation? Documented in advance. Pre-filled regulatory reporting template. If you ever need to report to the FDA, the form is already half done. Your company information, your contact person, the format you'll use. You fill in the event-specific details. You're not starting from scratch under pressure. DIY path. Build your lot tracking system in a spreadsheet first. Columns for supplier, delivery date, ingredient, lot number, batch produced, batch shipped, customer, ship date. That structure takes a day to design. The mock recall drill takes 2 to 3 hours per quarter. Run it with your team. The friction point is discipline. Lot numbers get skipped on the intake log when the dock is busy. One missing link in your traceability chain breaks. That is doable. The question is whether you want to be the one running it every week. Let's talk about what it actually looks like when you put all 5 of these standard operating procedures together. A multi-unit food and beverage operator with roughly $15 million in revenue across about 10 locations kept the same VSAs through a full business sale and a pivot to a new model. The systems outlived the company. The documentation survived the transaction. The new owners had day one clarity on how every location operated. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because someone documented the process and kept it running. Food sector turnover hit 73.9% in 2025. Training one new hire costs $3,500 to $5,000, and 74% of staff get 2 weeks of training or less. That's the situation. High churn, thin training, inconsistent execution. A written running standard operating procedure is the only thing that survives that churn cycle. Here's what a VSA actually does in this context. You talk through your receiving process for 5 minutes on video. The VSA writes the standard operating procedure, with screenshots, with the right steps, formatted. Then the VSA runs the receiving log every day, reviews the temperature logs, flags deviations, updates the procedure when something changes. You don't manage it, it just runs. Sulum has placed VSAs across more than 40 industries. The retention rate is 97%. Client retention at 12 months is 98%. The businesses using this model reclaim 20 to 30 hours a week, and the cost runs roughly half what you'd pay for an in-house equivalent. This isn't about outsourcing your problems, it's about building a system that runs without your constant attention. That's what these 5 standard operating procedures do when they're built right and run consistently. If you're at the point where you know something has to change, book a call. It's free. You talk to someone on my team, not a bot, not a form. You tell them what's going on in your business. They'll be straight with you about whether a VSA makes sense for where you are right now. If it does, you'll hear what that looks like and what it costs. If it doesn't, you'll know that too, and you're not out anything. The link's in the description. Just book it. And if this was useful, hit subscribe. We put out one of these every week. 5 systems, 1 hire. No binders nobody opens, just documentation that actually runs.